What's up, Civ fanatics? My name is 4 Extraordinaire, and welcome to my top 3 favorite and top 3 least favorite Civ 6 leaders. This video should be fairly short and self-explanatory, but I may have some controversial opinions, so if you think otherwise and want to debate me in the comment section, please feel free to comment down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the video, so let's get straight to it. The Tenacious Gaul take both my heart and the third spot on this list. For those of you that were here since the beginning, you may remember that I ranked them at the top of my tier list a few months back. However, since the new Frontier Pass has added so much in terms of variety as well as a big final patch, there have been some casualties as a result. Nevertheless, I still love Ambiorix and his Roman-busting 6-pack. The Oppidum are one of my favorite districts due to their insane production potential, and the additional culture generated from his magnificent mustache is the cherry on top. The Geisite also stay relevant for very long, which makes this Civ great at being low maintenance on the military side of things, for players like myself that like to play much more defensively. However, this wouldn't be much of a top 3 list without some self-introspection, and I will say that I don't like their reliance on mineable resources. Sometimes, if you get a bad start, it can be very crippling to your Oppidum production, and with the Oppidum relying on strategic resources, you have to wait until techs like ironworking come along to truly know if you are screwed or not. The next runner-up on this tier list is none other than the French. I may be a bit biased myself, but their lovely chateaux really do add to the atmosphere. But, since this is a top 3 list for leaders and not just civilizations, let me clarify that Magnificence Catherine is far and away my preferred leader choice. This mainly boils down to a few main reasons, but let me say that Black Queen Catherine and Eleanor come into play way too late for me. Magnificence Catherine offers an alternative to this self-defeating playstyle by giving the player bits and pieces of her power throughout the game. Par exemple, the bonus to luxuries comes in as soon as you unlock theater squares, and then court festivals, chateaux, and the ever-elusive Garde Impériale build on top of each other over time. By far, my favorite part of Catherine's toolkit is the synergy between chateau and luxuries. While it does come in a bit later than my liking, and the chateaux are a bit restrictive, the huge amount of culture generated from them is mind-blowing. If you like to go around and collect luxuries too, Catherine offers her own reward in what is essentially a precursor to the monopolies and corporations mode. One criticism I have for Magnificence Catherine is that the Garde Impériale comes far too late. Other than that, her starts can also be a bit finicky depending on where you want to place down your chateau, so keep that in mind in case you aren't a fan of restarting. Before I get to the top pick, I'd like to mention that I am trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by 2022, so if you want to help out the channel by leaving a like and subscribing, then that would make my day. Otherwise, we have a Discord with a link in the description that you can join too. Bull Moose is my number 1 pick for this tier list, and there are quite a few reasons as to why he is my favorite leader to play with. For starters, he has arguably one of the most unique and impactful abilities in the game, all of which is active on turn 1. The additional science and culture to natural features encourages a unique playstyle, and combined with the preserve, he has a completely unique playstyle in terms of maxing out yields with appeal. With the extra edge to national parks and the powerful studio, there are a few things I can find wrong with this kit. My only major critique is that his starts can be fairly RNG dependent. If you find yourself stuck in a jungle or another sparse area with poor appeal, you are in for a rough early game. Aside from that, I think that this game has really come a long way in terms of reworking civilizations. A year ago, if you had told me that America would be my favorite civilization to play with, I would have laughed. Then, most of these civ abilities felt very vanilla and uninspired. Now, almost all of the civilizations have their own unique styles and strategies. While there are still some things that the game struggles with, I am glad to see that the developers made strides in improving functionality in play. Otherwise, the new Frontier Pass would have been undoubtedly very, very disappointing. To kick off this list, I have put Hamurabi, who leads Babylon in the new Frontier Pass, at number 3. This might be shocking to you because many Civ fans across various social media platforms are having a blast with Babylon and its gimmicky mechanics. For the unfamiliar, Babylon gets free technologies from Eureka's immediately after it discovers them. I found a lot of people liking this bonus because it felt very unique, but my problem is quite the contrary. I think that free Eurekas aren't as innovative compared to civilizations like the Maya, who are incentivized to settle closer to their capital, and the flat-out minus 50% science malice can lead players to completely ignoring campuses altogether, essentially making Babylon the anti-science Civ, which is a 180 from its depiction in Civilization 6. While I am not vehemently opposed to new iterations of civilizations having a few changes, I think that the unorthodox and min-max way you play Babylon and rush her techs can be a bit excessive. I do not like the implementation of their Palgoom, their unique building, either, as it doesn't really help with the toolkit the Babylonians are provided. That said, I do like the Sabum Kibitum and the way it acts as a compromise between a warrior and a scout. It definitely performs its role much better than the Kree's Okichital, but I still have some problems with Babylon anyhow. Following after Hamurabi on this list for the number 2 slot is Eleanor of Aquitaine. To be specific, this is English Eleanor and not her French counterpart, which I like far better. Ironically, her French twin highlights her flaws when leading England to a higher degree, which makes switching from French Eleanor to English Eleanor all the more painful, which I will get onto later. Eleanor is one of 2 leaders who leads 2 separate civilizations in Civilization 6. The other leader is Kublai Khan, who was recently released as of when this video was posted and rules Mongolia or China. As such, Eleanor has to be flexible with both the English and French civilizations. Unfortunately, due to her ability Court of Love, she is more of a nuisance than a boon to the English people. Never mind the fact that Eleanor never ruled England, her ability also has very little synergy with the civilization's ability and unique district. The problem is that England is incentivized to spread its cities across multiple continents, but it doesn't have any emphasis on building theater squares. You will need theater squares as English Eleanor because, for her ability to work, she needs to have a place to store her great works. Because the Royal Navy dockyard does not have any slots for relics or great works, Eleanor is only getting a loyalty bonus which only somewhat complements her playstyle. To make matters worse, the English ability does not help our poor Aquitaine friend whatsoever because Workshop of the World only powers buildings and grants additional stockpiles to strategic resources which have no relation to Eleanor's playstyle of passively conquering her neighbors. If English Eleanor was a standalone leader, maybe she would be more viable, but seeing as one of her competitors literally does everything she does but better, she's left in quite the sorry state. The last leader on my list is none other than Basil II. For those of you familiar with my playstyle, seeing a domination-centric leader on my least favorites list shouldn't come as much of a surprise. However, I dislike Basil II for an entirely different reason: his wasted potential. In fact, I would have been fine if Basil kept some of his domination-related abilities, but the sheer neglect of Eastern Roman history for the Byzantine ability and its agendas is very disappointing to me. I feel particularly wounded since we have had wonderful mechanics and abilities throughout the New Frontier Pass, but for Byzantium to not even have a reference to its cultural and mercantile legacy is frankly insulting. There are no allusions to Constantinople being one of the most influential cities of its time. Basil uses reused animations and has a very disappointing attire compared to some of the Roman clothing at the time, and the Hippodrome is relegated to being a horse stock simulator. If I wanted to have this much of a miserable experience playing a Civ game, I would go back to Civilization 5 and play it with no mods or expansions whatsoever on epic speed. The one redeeming quality that Byzantium has is that its Hippodrome model is gorgeous. Nothing else. But since I don't want to come off as a craven and dejected Civ fan, let me show you some of my ideas for a better Byzantium in my opinion. For starters, I would prefer Alexios Komnenos as a leader instead of Basil II. Alexios did nearly the impossible and reclaimed Roman territory as the empire seemed to be on its decline. He is often cited as the reason that the empire lasted several hundred years longer, and there is even a biography dedicated to him by his daughter, Ayah Komnenos. I'm hoping that Alexios would possess some kind of ability related to emergencies. Perhaps he could receive additional production and movement speed during emergencies, or maybe there could even be a unique emergency that he could access every now and then to reclaim lost territory. I would also be fine with Byzantium keeping the Hippodrome, but instead of a unique district, I could see it as a unique government building instead. This Hippodrome should have a boost to amenities and stockpiles akin to the Colosseum. I would be perfectly fine with it giving amenities to nearby cities with the caveat that they have to have improved pastures. Of course, Byzantium would have a start bias to pasture resources. Now, these two abilities may seem more asymmetrical to each other, but I haven't mentioned my idea for the civilization's bonus yet. Keeping in with the theme of developing and safeguarding your cities, I think the Eastern Romans should have an overall stronger capital. Constantinople was, after all, known as the city of the world's desire, and the Byzantine ability should go all in to reflect that. I am thinking something along the lines of +2 amenities, +4 housing, +1 district slot, and +25% to all yields in the capital. Perhaps there could be a requirement to only settle on the coast since Constantinople was a port city after all. These bonuses ensure that you have a very consistently strong start and capital, as well as encouraging you to build up your cities and play somewhat defensively. A lot of the emphasis for the civilization's playstyle would be around maximizing your capital's output, and emergencies would supplement this due to the increased production and movement speed from them. I am fine with the Tagma as is, but I genuinely believe that this take on Byzantium would be more accurate and fun to play with. Hey everyone, 4Extraordinaire here again, and thank you for sticking to the end of the video. If you like this video and the concept, this is the first time I'm doing it, so a like and subscribing if you haven't already would be deeply appreciated. Aside from that, thank you again for watching the video, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. 4Extraordinaire, out.